Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Alliance Guys podcast. This is a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. This is the Alliance Guys podcast. I am your host, Jay Cal, and of course, with me as always is the man who is very concerned about domestic tranquility, Kevin Douglas, the modern day hero. Kevin, thank you for joining the show.
Hey.
And also, not the modern day hero, but the grumpy day hero, Mr. DKM. DKM, welcome to the show.
What?
All right. So we are talking NWA. Now, normally this show we use as a vehicle to talk about each week's episode of NWA Power. However, NWA Power was preempted this week to bring us something different, something interesting, in my opinion, and that was the Circle Square, the NWA show, a show that features a match, a promo, and a lot of fan opinion and fans talking about the program. And without standing on circumstance, first, DKM, what were your thoughts on this new concept for the NWA, and what did you think about the execution?
Well, I like the idea. I don't know that I was overly thrilled with this particular episode. To give a little bit of background, the show was just over 23 and a half minutes.
Correct.
They didn't actually start the matches until about 16 minutes in. Or the match. There was only one. So they started that about 16 minutes in. It was relatively short. I don't know, a couple minutes, I guess. Maybe 3. And the action of the actual match was good. So, but it was a little bit long. They kind of repeated some of the stuff we're pushing next week's Power episode. I don't know that I needed to see that 2 or 3 times, however many times they showed some of it. So, I mean, as we break down the show whole, I'll get into more detail, but good concept. Wasn't thrilled with the actual execution of this particular episode.
Mr. Kevin Douglas, you are a man who's been in the ring, and you've kind of encountered this where you're the new guy in the new town,
right?
And you have to make a name for yourself. How do you feel like this show compared to some of your experiences for the first time walking into that new venue, new arena, and acclimating yourself to not only the locker room but the fan base watching?
You know, it's never easy, even when you're awesome. So, you know, I mean,
so what was it like for you?
It was. I mean, like I said, it was never easy. You know, even being awesome and you know, knowing that what you did was going to be good, and knowing that by the time you know your match was over, the crowd would respect you. It's always hard to make a first impression. You always try to make your best, you know, put your best foot forward when you can. And I think that a lot of people already, especially watching on social media. I mean, I guess YouTube is technically social media, but people watching online, most people, I mean, if you're an independent, if you follow independent wrestling enough, like just a little bit, you're going to know these guys. You're going to know some of all 4 of them. I definitely know 3 of them. One of them I'm not super familiar with, but you know, when I didn't realize I was going to get as emotional. And when I say emotional, I didn't cry. But I did get excited. I popped, you know, like by myself when, you know, I saw Luke and his son come out. I've wrestled Luke before and know him personally.
I've seen you wrestle Luke.
Yeah, you saw it live. And you know, Luke was a guy that paid me good money to be a part of his company when they were affiliated with the National Wrestling Alliance. He gave me rolled out the red carpet as far as just, top-notch hotel, travel, the whole nine. And that was also it was on his show that that Percy Pringle presented me the new title that Devin has at his house. And so
currently holding it in my arms.
Right. And so it was, I and like I said, I've wrestled Luke. We had a great time. We've done multiple shows together. Most of those shows were his shows that he did, which were always top notch. And so I'm a big fan of him in the ring. I'm a big fan of him out of the ring. He's a great guy. To see him get to wrestle with his son is just like awesome. To notice that he brought his kid up as an amateur wrestler. That's awesome. So of course I was really excited about that and to get to see Tyson Dean, who's a good friend and just one of those guys that when I got to do the chaplain introduction at the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame a few years ago, he was one of the main talents that was brought in, and we just became friends immediately. And so we've kept contact ever since then. And he's a big time Christian guy. So, we had a lot of stuff to talk about. And so again, big fan. I know he does a lot with the Bullet Club, the big guy from the Bullet Club. Somebody help me out. Yeah, Luke Gallows. I know he does a lot of stuff with him at their gym. So, just a big supporter of his. So for me, again, I felt like I was a winner either way on the personal level, but plus like, if we get to if we want to just jump into the reviewing of the match, I felt like the things that were done in the match, were all big time. Every move was done exactly the way you want to see a move done. I thought you had a picture perfect spine buster. Again, I don't know if we're going to dive into the match review right now, but like I said, this is one of those matches that I've seen on the NWA that I could actually pick it apart and not hurt somebody's feelings.
Well, before we get into that, I did do a little bit of research because I was very much like you familiar with Luke Hawk. Luke Hawk kind of broke onto the Southern California indie scene while working with XPW. He was a King of the Deathmatch champion, believe it or not. And around that time, he was also working for NWA Anarchy and popping up in TNA. So I'm quite familiar with Luke Hawk, and I do know about his son. I've seen their pairing multiple times. And Luke still comes out to SoCal every now and then. And the last time he was here with his boy. So that was pretty cool. I was very happy to see that. But going further, he's Luke Hawk has kind of got a special place with the NWA in that he was either working for the NWA promotions or affiliated with the NWA promotions or affiliated with promotions that were affiliated with the NWA, if that makes sense. He's been very active with the NWA since 2008. He was even wrestling on David Marquez's NWA Showcase tour shows when they were wrestling in Kissimmee, Florida in the arena-sized venues. He was also a part of MTV's Wrestling Society X, which if you guys don't know, Dave Marquez was very much involved with that process too, along with Kevin Kleinrock, who was from XPW. Obviously, PJ doesn't have an extensive NWA career because PJ is still a young guy. Hasn't had a lot of opportunity to wrestle for the NWA, but we do know that, like Kevin was mentioning, Tyson Dean, he actually has a lot of NWA experience. He's a former NWA North American champion. In fact, he defeated Tim Storm to win that title, and that was back in 2016. In fact, he was the second to last champion, only losing to Mad Dog Mike, who I don't think we'll ever see in an NWA ring ever again. Mustang Mike, excuse me. And
why not? Why won't we see him in a ring? Maybe I'm a little outdated. What happened?
A lot of the guys who were in the National Wrestling Alliance under Bruce Tharp's ownership, a lot of the champions, burned a lot of bridges, and we'll just leave it at that.
Interesting.
And then also to Tyson Dean's credit, he's also a former NWA Georgia heavyweight champion because he spent a lot of time in the Peach State wrestling for the NWA in that Bruce Tharp era. Now, if you want to go back a couple of years, we talk about Jeff Lewis or Jeffrey Neal Lewis or Jeffrey Lewis Neal. I get confused. I like the guy, but I can't keep his name straight. He was a part of the stable with Jeff G. Bailey, the NWA Elite, which that was kind of a big thing in the old NWA Wildside, NWA Anarchy days.
Okay.
He's a former Anarchy TV champion, a former Anarchy heavyweight champion. He was also a part of the NWA in Charlotte, where he was the Mid-Atlantic Heritage champion, and also was working for the Mid-Atlantic promotion, Slim Bacon's promotion, the NWA Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and he was a hardcore champion. So to say that this guy has been very much involved with the NWA
hold
years,
on. Big. I mean, if I could clap and it would sound relatively good, if we could like have a sound bite for like applause, like way to go on your background research, Jay, for that.
Thanks, man.
I feel like I know the guy now.
Yeah, well, Jeffrey Lewis is a guy that I followed for a while. I used to watch Anarchy before we had a lot of the NWA promotions that we have today, or not today, but we had. I don't know about you guys, but I used to go on my dial-up internet and go to, I think it was called America One or something like that, and you could watch episodes of NWA Wildside via the internet.
Whoa.
And this was like, we're talking about early 2000, 2001, 2002. Like YouTube wasn't a thing yet, but they were somehow have the ability to stream this show over the internet. So that was really cool. And I used to watch the NWA Elite.
Like 1 inch by 2 inch and blurry.
Blurry as hell. Hard to see anything, but you kind of knew it. Yeah, you knew what was going on, though. I mean, not because I have a lot of experience watching pixelated stuff. That's not me. But moving right along.
Well,
Sure.
Now, fun fact, did you guys know that I did wrestle for NWA Wildside?
I did not know this.
I did not know that.
That was one of my very first road trips. Big, like, long road trips as a wrestler, and one of my very first things I did as Kevin Douglas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, so early on I wore a mask and all this kind of stuff, and actually had a lot of success. And then I had a major injury, and after that I came back and I thought, I'm never going to get good at like talking and working the fans and using facial expressions if I'm wearing a mask. And so that's why I ditched the mask and I went with just a generic thing. And I just thought, I'm going to have a crazy gimmick. I'm just going to wrestle like in wrestling, and I'm going to be like a wrestler in professional wrestling. And the funniest thing is I was like totally different than everybody else because I just went out there.
Back when you had mop hair?
That was before that. I had a buzz cut, and a 5 o'clock shadow. I wore a singlet, and I wore like a Bret Hart thing, whatever you call that thing, unitard. Kind of look like pre WWE Dynamite Kid, if you want to like compare it, like get a visual. And I used to beat people. I mean, bad. I used to beat people up, like big dudes, little dudes. Like I beat people up in practice. I beat people up in tryout matches. I beat people up in matches. It's just Rodney had me in this like kill mode. And it was just like that was how I worked. I mean, I didn't know any other really way to work at that point. I just beat the crap out of people, and I was so angry.
About Kevin,
yeah, never me.
Fact about Kevin is that a lot of it's so hard because of work weights and work heights and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know how big people are, but at the time that I was watching Kevin wrestle, he was probably around 170 pounds.
Yep.
And this guy, a lot of people don't know this, but promoters would occasionally bring Kevin in to knock a big guy off his off his high horse.
Yeah.
Oh.
But Kevin could go in and stretch the big guys and pummel them because he could wrestle.
Yep.
So a lot of people don't know that Kevin was actually brought in to discipline big wrestlers who were getting a little too big for themselves.
Yeah.
Name names. This is 2020. Name names.
Probably not a good idea. Probably because we had this term called Accidentally on Purpose, and you just kind of after these things happen, you just kind of shrug your shoulders and go, "Oh, you know." But no, like a lot of times, you know, there's a pretty well-known deathmatch wrestler. Now, I wasn't brought in to discipline him, but we wrestled the first time, and he knocked me out twice. And I didn't take to that very well. And I thought, next time I get my hands on this dude, I'm just going to stretch him. And so I did. I didn't go toe-to-toe with him anymore. I just went in there and just put him on the mat and made him wrestle. And I'm telling you, this guy is one of those guys that people fear all over the world. And I'm telling you, 10 minutes in of just stretching this dude, I mean, I swear to you, he was whimpering. And he was ready. He was like, "Brother, let's take it home." I said, "Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. We're not going anywhere. We got 10 more minutes. We're main event. We got 20. I'm getting my full 30-minute segment out here, and it's going to be at your expense." And I put him over that night, but I guarantee you nobody believed it. So, anyways, yes, I did. So, like I said, but when I went out to – I digress. I did beat up wrestlers a lot. I was stiff, and I was, I was snug or stiff or whatever term you want to call it. I made the people believe the show. If you watched a comedy wrestler do a bunch of comedy stuff right before my match or right after my match, you might have actually believed it because of what happened beforehand. But but anyways, so when I went out to Wildside as like just a trip, I got invited by Bill Behrens to go, and I had made some waves on Ken Taylor's NWA Southwest, and was kind of on the radar for the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title almost immediately early on in my career, and had a little feud with Cassidy Riley. In Louisiana, we kind of traded matches here and there, and man, I'm telling you, we had like some just unbelievable matches. Some of the best matches of my early career, just all over the place. Inside the ring, outside the ring, chain wrestling, 20, 25 minute, just blowouts. And so I got invited up there. We went up there. We had a tag match. And in the write-up, I was the only one that got write-ups because I gave one of our opponents a brainbuster, and I swear I thought I'd knocked him out. I mean, it just was nasty. But you can go on, and actually that match is on YouTube, and they think my name is my opponent's name. And when they did the write-up, I don't know where I'd find it. But in the write-up, they apologized, like, "Oh, on the video, you think he's Joey Corman, but he's actually Kevin Douglas," and blah, 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 blah. So, anyways, there's my quick NW.
And in my hurting years.
What's that? Oh, Joey Corman? Yeah.
Joey Corman, I remember.
Oh, yeah. I beat him up.
What was it, 25 pounds?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't – and, Joey wasn't a bad guy. I mean, he really was a nice guy, and he helped me a lot early on because I didn't know my head from my butt. All I knew how to do was beat people up, and he at least told me, like, "Oh, you just don't go out there and just beat up everybody to get over." And I was like, "What's get over? What does that mean?" Just kind of that thing. I just knew how to choke people out and punch them in the face. And so, like, that was all I really knew. But so me and, I had a little bit of a bittersweet relationship with him, but we had a few, probably 10 or 12 matches early in my career. And so Zane Morris was my tag partner, and it was me and Zane Morris against, let me take that back. It was me and Joey Corman against Zane Morris and Joey's traveling partner, Samir. And it was a good match. We had a good match. We got a good review. I got invited back, but I just couldn't, after that, I was doing so well in the Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas area that the money wasn't there. And, I just never did that. But, AJ Styles was on the show I was on, a bunch of other names that if you went back over the match card, you go, "Oh, I know who that guy is. I know who that guy is." It was a good time. It was a cool experience. So,
and that's a big deep dive into NWA Anarchy. If you guys were wondering, I'm glad that Kevin, you were able to bring some of the life from Anarchy.
It's a heck of a show. It was a heck of a show and a great promotion. It was really a good time. They were good.
What a lot of people seem to forget about is that Wildside was kind of like a feeder fed to WCW at the time. So a lot of the top talents of Anarchy, Wildside, kind of got promoted into WCW, and then Anarchy had a very close relationship with TNA. So a lot of the guys kind of transitioned from Anarchy right into Total Nonstop Action. And let's be honest, in a day and age where TV syndication was still kind of a thing, and you couldn't really just churn on NWA anytime, any place you wanted to, that relationship that Bill Barron had by distributing that show out to so many different markets. I mean, Jaden will tell you if he was on the show that he was watching the show in New Jersey. I'm out here in Southern California watching that show online, and we aren't the only ones that were doing that. That show was really kind of I don't want to put it on the same wavelength as ECW, but the fact that it was getting seen by so many people outside of Cornelia, Georgia, I mean, that says something about that product. And really, in a time and age when the NWA was a veritable unknown, Wildside and Anarchy kind of kept the tradition of the NWA alive. So I really think if people are kind of rolling their eyes when we're waxing poetic about the Bill Barron's Wildside or Anarchy, it really kept the NWA afloat for a while.
Isn't Barron's one of the producers for the show? I saw his name on the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I see him there I say all the time. I was at one TV taping, and I'll probably be at the next TV taping. But yeah, he is there. It was kind of funny because this girl in front of me, when I was at the TV taping, started popping for Bill Barron's when he kind of walked out. And I said, "Hey, look, it's Bill Barron's." And she turned around and looked at me like, "How do you know who Bill Barron's is?" And I said, "Are you related to him?" Because she was really cheering for him. She goes, "No, my boyfriend wrestles." And I'm like, "Oh, what's his name?" I don't know who her boyfriend is. I don't know. Yeah, it's somebody I never heard of, but I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Good luck. I hope he does well."
Right. Yeah, and just for the record, Bill was a great guy to work for, because I interestingly enough came back around and interacted with him again when I was doing the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title. So it's just a funny thing how the world is so small, and how the wrestling world can be so small sometimes.
And that ladder, you say this, you see the same people when you go up the ladder as you do down the ladder, and then back up the ladder again. They're all the same guys.
Right. That's very true.
So let's get back to Circled Squared. And I know, Kevin, you have some comments you want to make on it. I did take some detailed notes, but you know what? I don't really think that the notes are really worth getting into. I mean, the viewership for the show was kind of low, which was to be expected because this wasn't NWA Power. This isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea. I'm a huge fan of both tag teams. I thoroughly enjoyed the match. I thought they needed more time, but I think either team would be an asset to the show. I really feel like both teams could add value to the show. I like Luke Hawk. I'll call myself a Luke Hawk fan. So seeing him and his boy out there, and that kid threw an awesome suplex, like amazing, crisp, clean, lock the hips. It was great. Tyson Dean is someone I know about, but I've never really seen him in action. He looked good. Jeffrey Lewis Neal looked good. All in all, I thought the match was great. I'm
laughing because I feel like Devin's breathing in my ear right now.
You are breathing a little heavy there,
like,
Mr.
DKM. Right now. Did you fall asleep?
What are you two yapping about?
Wake up, old man. We're doing a show.
Were you snoring over there?
I wasn't snoring. I wasn't even by the phone. I had to go somewhere.
Okay, sorry.
I had to go take my old man medicines.
Oh man. Okay, sorry, Jay.
I'll take mine later.
Carry on. You were really impressed by both teams.
Yeah, I thought both teams really brought some value to the show. So I don't care which way you guys vote. Personally, I voted for PJ and Luke, and I thought they were good. I kind of like the idea of Nikolai Volkov and Kevin. You've kind of pointed this out week after week, that if you're going to bring in Kevin?
Who?
You said Nikolai Volkov?
Oh, excuse me. Nikita Koloff. See, and you did that too.
I did. Don't
throw me under the bus. You did that too. Excuse me. Nikita Koloff. Nikita Kevin, you kind of pointed this out a few weeks ago when he showed up on TV to introduce the TV title, and you said, if they're going to bring legends back to the NWA, why don't they put them in a role that is going to help grow the competitors, help make that team or group more legitimate?
I mean, how many times have I called what's going to happen on this show? How many times?
Quite a bit.
Come on.
Quite a bit.
I mean, like a modern day prophet. Come on.
New nickname.
Let's go. Come on. You need to just throw modern day in front of it. But no, I'm going to jump in because I'm not going to talk about the match. I'm going to talk about that subject right there because I'm not letting it die because it's not dead yet. It still happens.
No matter how much we try.
Right. And it's like, I there's no reason to kill it until the wrestling world as a whole gets a clue and stops rolling this garbage out there and starts, and again, do you think that Nikita Koloff, do you think that if he put on some trunks and went out there and had a match with Colt Cabana, that he couldn't get a pop and that they couldn't have a decent match? Do you think he doesn't know how to do that? Yeah, of course he does. But he has more self-respect than to go out there and do the garbage that the Rock and Roll Express roll out there, with Nick Aldis having to lift Ricky Morton onto his shoulders, using all his strength to lift Ricky Morton onto his shoulders, so Ricky Morton can hit a bootleg Hurricane Rana. Not even a good one. Give me a break, man. Like, give me a break. Like, Ricky Morton, if you don't like it, for real, you could say something because I don't care. I really don't. And Robert Gibson, I love you. Thanks for what you did for me 20 years ago in the beginning of my career, but you know better than this, man. Boom. Moving on. Way to go, Nikita. Hold on. There's my clap. Okay, way to go, Nikita, for showing those old dirt bags how to do it. Show them how it's done.
Hey, Jay.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, do you know how Kevin feels about the Rock and Roll Express still wrestling?
Thank you, Devin. No, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Devin, actually, thank you. In all seriousness, thank you for saying how Kevin feels about the Rock and Roll Express still wrestling. Because it's not that I don't respect them and I don't respect what they've done. It's that I don't respect what they're doing. Okay, carry on, Jay. Sorry. How do I really feel?
It's my turn now.
I've got it pretty down how Kevin feels, but DKM, what were your thoughts on the Hawk Ari versus the best kept secret in wrestling?
Well, let me tell you how I feel.
Tell me about it.
Actually, as far as the match was concerned, one of the reasons it was too short was because it was really good.
Agreed.
It kind of had that same feel as the tournament 6-minute time limits for the TV title.
Yeah.
You had to go out there and do something. And so that's why these teams felt they had to go out there and do something. First of all, Mr. Younger, Hawk, whatever his name was, PJ, is that, boy, did he display some mat wrestling at the beginning or what?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, cradle, turnover. I mean, just excellent mat wrestling. And they did it in a way that shows that can be exciting.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, oh, mat wrestling, that don't work no more.
Well,
is that your VKM?
Is that DKM doing DKM?
It's DKM.
No, DKM. No, because DKM likes max wrestling. This is me doing. This is me doing all the stupid people that think you can't do that anymore.
I thought it was DKM doing Vince Kennedy McMahon. VKM.
Oh, VKM.
Maybe. No, he talks faster. Can't do that. Nobody wants to see that anymore. Don't use the word hospital. Nobody uses the word hospital in real life. Call a medical center.
Okay, carry on.
So anyway, so some excellent mat wrestling, some excellent tag wrestling, some fired up, let's beat the crap out of each other wrestling. I mean, the match was good.
Right.
And so wasn't fond about Nikita being a coach for one of the teams because I felt like that kind of skewed how people may look at the teams. Oh, if we vote for these guys, maybe we'll get Nikita coming out more. And on the other hand, it's, they say, well, don't take who won and lost into consideration. Well, you kind of have to take who won and lost into consideration.
Yep.
I mean, it's part of the nature of it.
Can I?
But my attitude. Let me finish up this one thought.
Sure.
My attitude is the NWA desperately needs tag teams. So can we find a way to get this to end in a tie?
Right.
Thank you. Now we know this is a competition, much like American Idol. So I think there's only going to be like one winner, right? But that doesn't mean that the second best artist can't sign a contract and show up on TV, because again, both these teams bring something different to the NWA. Both of these teams brought some excitement. And to your point, DK, when you said that, Nikita might, distract from the other team, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but PJ was the kid that was in the mall jumping off the second story.
He's viral.
And that video went viral. And I don't know if people are going to see that video and say, oh, well, who is this guy? And how do we get him a contract with some wrestling promotion? But what a great...
That's a sword that cuts both ways.
Yeah, because... And I'm sure somebody who is a fan of Jim Cornette might say, hey, that's mud show crap. That's Carney BS stuff. That's not stuff we should watch in a ring. And, I don't know the whole storyline behind that. I don't think
who?
PJ Hawk... Say what?
Who? Jim who?
Just go.
I don't think PJ Hawk would just dive on a guy for no reason in a match. I think his dad taught him better than that. There might have been some sort of good storyline setting that up.
Oh, I've got a great storyline for that, but go ahead.
Well, we don't really know the storyline unless you're really following.
I can actually help you. Why would you not? If you know you're going to be on TV the following week, why would you not pull a stunt like that?
So you think that was scripted, or not scripted, but you think they did that with the intent of going viral?
Well, either it was just a great coincidence, or, and again, like I know Luke personally. Like, did you guys not hear his promo? Like, his promo was lights out. I mean, that is a promo. The cadence, the way he viewed the camera, the way he was understandable. He had an accent that nobody else can copy. I mean, I'm telling you, I could layer what they did in this match. Everybody across the board did. The only edge I'm going to give is going to be Luke and his kid for the promo. That was where I felt like they certainly were far ahead, because that promo was golden. You know what else was great about it? Is you got to watch Luke allow his son to struggle a little bit, to learn, to get the jitters out on having his first big time nationally recognized promo, and he let him have it. He let him go out there and he let him have his time. He let him say what he had to say, and I thought that was great. And what a great comment by one of the critiques or whatnot, where they said, "Well, it looks like PJ is the ABC and Luke is the XYZ," and that's true.
Yeah.
Because Luke was the closer in the promo, and he was the closer in the match. And, like, everything about that match was great except for the short time limit. So I think we all agree there. But I'm telling you, the spine buster that Tyson Dean gave was absolutely perfect. Like you said, the kids mat wrestling, the suplex he gave, perfect. The spacing and the timing on the hot tag at the end, perfect. I mean, I could go back and have to literally split hairs to tell you, like, maybe what went wrong, like what wasn't done right in that match. And I think it's a testament to a couple things. Number one, it's a testament to how much talent is on the independent out there right now wrestling.
Yep.
And again, Luke Hawx to me is a big time player. I'm not really 100% sure why he's not on more regular television right now, nor do I think he cares, nor do I think he needs to, because he's a great businessman. I mean, he's running a great promotion, has been running a great promotion now for almost 10 years, and has obviously been spending time with his family, doing what most wrestlers never get the opportunity to do, which is get to live the dream and have a family, or at least pay attention. I don't know everything about his life, but he's getting to spend time with his kid, and his kid's getting to follow in his footsteps. So to me, as far as the mall jumping thing, it to me it was well timed, and I don't know if you can call that a coincidence, because Luke they had to know that this was going to air when it was going to air. I mean, everybody knew when it was going to air. It's not like the NWA is like keeping a secret with their programming. We've known about all this for a few months. I did. And so, it doesn't seem like a big coincidence. And again, I'm gonna take another dig on the Rock and Roll Express here. Look at a guy like Luke, who is actually still could technically be in his prime, putting himself on the back burner for his son. Luke wasn't the one jumping off the balcony to get all the press. You notice that? Luke's not trying to have some tag partner that's some big time name guy to get a better shot at getting on TV. Like, there's a lot of things that he could be doing right now to get himself over and get himself ahead, but instead he's doing something that most wrestlers, like I said, never get to do, and that's be with his kid. I mean, I just give him a lot of props, a lot of respect. I have respect for him anyways, but the way the promo was done, the kid getting to talk first, knowing the kid was nervous as heck. Get out there, boy, get out there and get the nerves out. Get your first big time promo. Get out there and say something. I'll clean it up at the end, and that's what he did. Carry on.
Can I add one more thing on PJ?
Sure.
And I just want to point this out, because in the NWA, I think DKM will agree with me, and Kevin, you might too. For the longest time, there weren't clearly defined roles for a lot of characters in the NWA. You didn't know who the hero was. You didn't really know who the villain was. You didn't really know who to boo. You didn't really know who to cheer. PJ Hawks is a babyface, and he took his beating. Am I not talking clearly today?
No,
a babyface.
It's just good stuff.
He's a legitimate babyface. I mean, he's literally a kid. He took his beating like a man. They busted his mouth open. He was bleeding, but he worked that. Did you notice that? How he looked at the camera and was reaching for his pops to make that tag? I mean, he was selling it. And I think these kind of things, I mean, you could teach this, but it seems like it comes to him pretty naturally. Right. And again, both teams, I'm telling you right now, there is no wrong way to vote.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, you guys have been yapping endlessly. I actually rewatched the match just now.
Sure.
Oh, I did too. It was on.
And it was, again, just amazing. I'm going to have one nitpick.
Let's hear it.
I'm going to have one nitpick. This is something that drives me crazy in wrestling. And that is that Luke left his headband or bandana or whatever on when he wrestled. And every time I see that, I go, why doesn't the opponent just pull that thing down and choke them with it?
Yeah.
It's something that irritates me across the board. Bobby Lashley used to do that. Oh, come on. Oh, I know he's your good buddy, but it's something that irritates me.
Man, so it just looks cooler, man.
But now let's go on to a complaint about the show in general that I think we can all agree on.
Let's hear it.
Come on.
All right. Announcers, when you got something like this going on, do your bloody research,
right? And
don't say something stupid.
I know.
And the stupid thing that was said was they're like, "Wow, a father-son tag team." I don't know if that's happened before. This may be a first. You're in Atlanta, in Georgia, where Bob and Brad Armstrong had held the national tag team titles. Now, I realize that most of them were born after.
Didn't
after
they
that happened?
Didn't somebody correct that? Like, I thought I heard Armstrong on the show. Like I thought somebody said something like the Armstrongs or something like that.
I think they kind of did later, but it was almost like
no, it was one of the reviewers. One of the reviewers said it. Yeah, the reviewers knows more about wrestling than the play-by-play guys.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, Jaden, we miss you. Come back. Jaden and I were talking with Jay the other day. I mean, and we were just like spouting people off the top of our heads.
I lost count after 20.
Yeah, there was like, Larry and Kurt Hennig, who had several runs at the Road Warriors for the AWA tag team titles. Bill and Jamie Dundee. Angelo and Randy Poffo, better known by the name Randy Savage. Dory Funk Jr. and Sr.
Right.
Tugboat Taylor and Chaz Taylor.
Yeah.
And that's just we went on and on.
Guys, are we a wrestling history encyclopedia over here? Jay went on his rant earlier with all his stuff about the one guy, and then now Devin's rattled off 15 father-son tag teams. We need more. More people should be tuning into this show.
I mean, should. I'm going to tell you right now, we don't get the respect we deserve.
Hey, I took you guys.
Well, maybe we have the wrong face on the video.
Hey, you're more. Hey, come sit in my lap. You can be in the video with me.
So I went back and I'm just watching the promo again, and I love it because Luke's kid says a few words, and Luke looks at him. And he's like, you're not done. Say some more stuff. It's great. I mean, that's a great coach. I did
notice that.
Yeah, because
when the show first happened, I did notice.
Well, and again, I go back again, and I'm digging on the Rock and Roll Express a little bit here. It's like, here's a guy who actually is in somewhat of his prime, maybe is in his prime, that's not so greedy to take time away from a young wrestler, which is what the business needs to survive. And it's like, it's like he's making a place for that. And I know Ricky Morton's kid is a wrestler, and I think they're starting to, he finally got his kid out of his basement playing Xbox and stopped supporting his family. And his son actually got a job as a wrestler. And, hey, I think it's great, but where has this been? Anyhow, I'm glad
Which kid?
I don't know. I just saw it on the internet the other day. Yeah, the other day they saw it on the internet, and I want to say Bull, because Bull and I and Jamie Holly, we have a little chat going, and they send me Rock and Roll Express stuff all the time just to get me to riff on it. And of course they agree. I mean, they agree.
So this is official recognized kid, right?
No.
He's not now. You're taking shots now, man. That's great. I'm proud of you, DK. I knew there's a reason I loved you, man.
I mean, come on. Those stories are not unknown.
No, this son is using the Morton last name. Will be appearing on the Smoky Mountain Cup, the return of Innovative Pro Wrestling. Tony Givens, who is someone I would consider a friend of the show, is putting on this big event coming up very soon. We might be talking more about it later. I don't know. It's not really connected to the NWA, but it does connect to the history of the NWA. They're going to be featuring guys like Jack Stain, who we're all a big fan of over here. Jason Kincaid, somebody else who I think we're all pretty fond of. Some guy named Chase something or other.
The brother.
And of course Ricky
Morton's prize people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
Are we talking about his son or Chase Owens?
Well, I mean,
that Chase somebody.
Apples to apples. I mean, come on.
But bringing everything back to the Circle Squared, because this is your NWA podcast of record. Although underappreciated, we always over-deliver on content that's connected to the rich history of the legacy of the National Wrestling Alliance. And we're talking about the Circle Squared and just overall the production, overall the show. Personally, I would watch this show again. I liked how they had Mooney, that Mooney 2 minutes. I think this is where that needs to be. I think the show had a little bit of showing the fan cams, the podcasters, the vloggers commenting on the show. I think they should have been one takes. They should have been like popped up in the circle, on a circle or square on the camera and be like, oh, this is what he's talking about, or oh, this is what I like about this. Whatever it is, I don't want to see the same scene over and over again and have each person comment on that. Now, your boy Jay was asked to be a part of this, and I just missed the message. And I might be on one in the future. Who knows? But all in all, I thought this was a great introductory episode. I'd like to see more of this kind of content, but maybe cleaned up a little bit. I don't need to see the same promos twice. Maybe do, this was the first episode, maybe have a backstage interview with the people who are going to be on next week to kind of tease it. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty good show, and I will watch again.
Man, I'm sorry to jump in, but I'm kind of, again, watching this match again, and it's like PJ Hawks took this dude down like a boss, man.
Oh,
that single
for sure.
Takedown was like
a thing of beauty.
Picture perfect, too. Like, it's
not. Did you see that rolling bridge? That rolling bridge, that was awesome.
But a lot of times, it's wrestling, and sometimes I would like to call it co-op wrestling, which I wasn't a big fan of in my day. I mean, there were some times we do some co-op stuff, but I was much more of a fan of stuff where people would watch and go, oh, that guy didn't help him there. And if we did stuff like that, it was somewhat masked. But that was one of those moves where it was like, if the other guy wanted to stop it, I don't care how big he is, he's going down. Like that was perfect. I mean, it was ideal. And again, there's just not a lot to not like about this match. Unless you're just a nitpicker about headbands, but
which I am, and it should have been taken off.
But Luke looks cool with the headband. That's like signature Luke Hawks, man.
That would be like you wrestling in the cape the entire time.
I could do it.
But the cape was cool. But you
wait. There's plenty of times I saw Kevin wrestle with the cape on. Let's not be serious, silly about this.
Well, I think I did the red carpet rumble in the cape. Didn't I? The second one?
Were you in the cape the whole time?
I think
yes.
I know you would put it back on before you do like the splash sometimes.
Well, it just depended on the outfit. Like I had this like kind of battle armor Batman type thing that I would wear. And usually when I wore that, I would try not to take the cape off just because it looked cool.
I remember you and Johnny Yuma, you put Yuma's bandana on and he put your cape on. And that was in Glendale.
Good times. But yeah, this match, man, again, I think the only critique we really have besides, micromanaging headbands is just the fact that it didn't go long enough. We could have gotten more out of this match. These guys were just going after it. And we've talked about the NWA before, and I'm sure we agree again. It is a wrestling show. It doesn't hurt to give us a few more minutes of wrestling and a little bit less talking.
And especially because the show itself is only 30 minutes long, or 23 minutes and 33 seconds. I think, again, a longer match would have been great. I think, I don't know if you guys agree with me. I still think the promo for next week's competitor should have been on as well. The Mooney, the moment with Mooney or whatever they call it. I think that was good. And as you're watching it, they showed the promos and then they're showing all the promos again with the fans' comments on it. I think they should have just worked that in all at the same time.
Sure. It
should have been all together. I think because showing the replay just kind of makes me like, all right, let's get to the match. I don't want to see this. The insight that the fans have, the vloggers, the bloggers, the podcasters. There's some good insight, but it could have just been incorporated to the show a little bit better.
And again, Luke Hawk's promo, man. If you haven't gone back and watched it again and just listened to it, it's awesome. I mean, the cadence, like I said, when I say cadence, I hope you know what I mean. Like the way that he was very commanding, very calm. His voice inflection was appropriate. A lot of times wrestlers get up there and they, the whole time, and they're yelling the whole time. And I think, if you want to see this done as an art form, go watch a YouTube Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce could grasp your attention whispering as much as he could yelling. And that's a sign of a great promo. Jake the Snake's another one that, he could whisper, or just sit there and be quiet and just have you hanging on edge. And so, again, I thought that was one of the good things about Luke's promo. And, again, I love that he was willing to give some time to the kid to get on the mic, even though obviously there's a big difference in quality of promo. And again, this is not knocking the kid. I mean, obviously we've all raved about how much promise he's shown, but the mic work is some of the hardest part. But to make him get out there and say a few things, and then he thought he was done. He's like, no, boy, you say something else. Get out there and say another thing. I like that. And then again, he took it home with an awesome catchphrase. Very commanding presence. I thought I would have liked to have heard a little bit from Tyson Dean on the mic, because I know he's good on the mic. So I'm not quite sure how that transpired. Again, I think it kind of hurts the team a little bit, because you want to see how both of the guys do. Getting to see Nikita actually know his role and act like an experienced wrestler and show some respect to the ring, instead of getting out there and embarrassing himself and embarrassing what we do, or what I used to do and what the wrestlers do these days. And I know a lot of wrestlers won't agree with me, and I know a lot of fans won't agree with me, but I'll just have to disagree.
They're entitled to be wrong.
Yeah, they can be wrong. So anyway, all in all, it was fun. I know we wanted to do some wrestling chat after the fact. I'm sure we digressed a lot off there, but I'm good to move on if you guys are. I mean, Jay, you're steering this boat.
So so we wrapped up Circle Squared. All in all, just real quick, your take. Will you watch it again, Kevin?
Oh yeah. That was one of my favorite things.
DK, you're gonna watch again?
Oh sure. And I think something that needs to be pushed out about this show that some people may not understand is that this isn't rookies wrestling trying to get a break. These are experienced wrestlers trying to get a break.
Yeah.
And so, yes, PJ, of course, obviously young, but he's been around for a little while. He's grown up in the business, and he has some obvious talents. But yeah, if people were thinking, oh, I don't want to watch, two green people, trip over each other, that's not what this show is.
And so I'd go as far as to say this is probably one of the best matches that have been on. Yeah, this time slot, you know what I mean?
It reminded me of the what was the one where it was? I think it was Braum, and was it what was the match that I was raving about? Well, no, that was one-on-one.
No, Trevor
Murdoch.
There was a tag
Murdoch
match.
And Latimer.
That was another good one, but no, there was another tag match where I want to say maybe it was the Wild Card versus versus Storm and Eli Drake. I'm not quite sure what match I'm remembering, but I remember watching Braum and one of them other big dudes just in there, just going after it.
We really liked Storm, Tim Storm and Latimer. They had a great match.
Yep,
that was a very, very heavy hitting match. And then Murdoch and Latimer, but it was really good too.
Yeah, it was before that match. It was just kind of a one-off match. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I want to say maybe the Wild Cards versus. Maybe versus Storm and Eli Drake. I don't know if they've actually had a match or not, but anyways, all that being said, it was definitely one of the best segments, and both of these teams, I think, could hold their own in this tag division, especially as weak as it is right now.
And I don't have any pull with the NWA. I don't have any stroke. I've got zero clout. But I did message Mr. David Lagana and suggested that they sign both teams because it was clearly these four guys would bring value to NWA Power, and not to discredit what we saw 2 weeks ago with the Bouncers and the Dawsons, but adding some more tag team blood, this would be good for the brand.
Hey, let's just call it what it is. This match was better than that match. Both of these teams are better. Both of these teams are better than both of those teams.
Of course they are.
There is not even a doubt in my mind. And if those two teams are drawing checks and these teams aren't, come on, NWA.
Moving on, WrestleCon coming to the Tampa, Florida area. Kevin, I know you might be slightly familiar with these grounds, these hallowed grounds for pro wrestling. That's WrestleMania weekend. Nick Aldis will be appearing at WrestleCon on April 3rd. And that's going to be at the George Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, Florida. And so the NWA will be a part of the festivities WrestleMania weekend because you're going to have Nick Aldis wrestling PCO for Ring of Honor. You're going to have Nick Aldis wrestling at WrestleCon, and the stipulation is he's going to be defending against an opponent of his choosing. I don't know who that will be, but we also know Ricky Starks is also on this same card. So the NWA will be represented at WrestleMania weekend. I think that's important to point out because, like it or not, WrestleMania weekend is probably the biggest weekend of professional wrestling in this country.
Yep.
And our guys, our champion, the national treasure, the man who says it's strictly business, the guy who's defended that title on 4 continents, will be defending his title at WrestleMania weekend. I think that's a really good thing.
Agreed.
Very much.
So the floor is yours, gentlemen. I mean, we're only 55 minutes into it. What do you guys want to talk about, be it NWA or wrestling in general?
Well, I actually wanted to ask Kevin something.
Shoot.
As
Ring
somebody,
get to work, brother. Sorry, couldn't help myself.
All right, can we drop Jay from this now? No. Anyway,
We couldn't do this without Jay. Watch it.
all right. So, what recently with some podcasts I've been listening to, in different ones, not the term wrestling psychology has been coming up, and not just in like a match specifically, but just in general, like building a card and stuff. And so, it's, you wrestled 14, 15, 16 years.
Right.
I don't remember exactly.
15 plus.
So, 15 plus. So, what did you find that, like, when putting the card together and putting wrestlers in, what did you find was one of the best ways that the card would build up to like a main event?
Well, go ahead. Carry on.
Well, what I was going to say is that, a lot of people don't understand, they don't get that the opening match in a wrestling card is as important to how the fans experience the card as the main event.
Right.
Because if you turn me off in the opening match, I may not just anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Or it'll be a lot harder to get me in. I may be quiet for the first 3 matches.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what did you find in your career that, it's like, hey, this is a good way that you kind of put a card together. This is a good way that you kind of get some psychology out there and get the fans motivated, but not burnt out at the same time.
So allow me to kind of pull the curtain back on this. And if you're a wrestler and you're big into protecting the integrity of wrestling, this shouldn't be offensive. But the matches on a show, and again, I'm going to break it down in 2 different types of shows, and maybe really even 3. You have what's called a house show. You have what's called a television show, and then you have pay-per-view. And so these 3 different shows are booked differently because of what they do. A television show like WWE Raw, and now even NXT, it's changed and affected NXT as well, because NXT to me was like every week was like a kind of like a house show / pay-per-view feel, not a TV feel. And I'll tell you why this dynamic exists. On a TV show, you're not going to follow the same type of principles that you would on a house show or a pay-per-view because your audience is there for free. And if the show lags on, they're going to change the channel. Or if it's not any good, or if they're unhappy, chances of them changing the channel are higher because it's on there for free. And so you're going to have a lot more hot shotting and shock TV, a lot more things that don't make as much sense on a television show because of the fact that you're really trying to either push a storyline so that people will buy a pay-per-view or will come to a house show, or you're trying, like I said, you're trying to gain ratings, whatever that is. And so that format can be honestly the Wild West. The time I was at Raw for tryout during the Slammies. It was like a 4.5 hour ordeal. And I'm telling you, it was like nothing I've ever seen, because the run sheet, which is the matches that they list, and people always ask me, oh, wrestling's this, wrestling's that. And I told them, I said, when I was at Raw, they had, I want to say like 16 matches or something laid out there. And not every match went out there. Like some matches got canceled like 2 minutes before the match was going to go out there.
Wow, brutal.
That would be me. Other wrestlers were like there were blank spots on the run sheet. So, like some people didn't know who they were wrestling. Some spots were completely open. And, strangely enough, like some of the names that would end up in those blank slots was Randy Orton, John Cena, D-Generation X. Like we're not talking about like jabronis. These were like the top guys that had to be ready to move at any moment. And, again, that just shows you this just the Wild West. And again, that was 2009, 2010. My friend Lance Archer, he was on television at the time. And like I said, he didn't know what the heck he was doing. So, he ended up wrestling. He ended up having a match. He ended up winning his match, but he didn't even know he was wrestling until like 20 minutes beforehand. And they told him, oh, you're up. Oh, wait, you're not up. Oh, you're up. Oh, but you're not up.
Wow.
So
that's brutal.
TV is wild. And again, like, but that kind of live TV is different than what we would do in Hollywood, where the matches were taped. There was a set time that set, the building was rented for this long. The show had to be this, of course they could edit and do all that. And again, though, there was always changes. It never just went exactly as you'd think it was going to go. So again, a television show is a whole different way of booking. A house show, on the other hand, you book a house show a lot like you would book a wrestling match, or a movie, or a television show, or like a TV show where you maybe like a Netflix show where you're not having commercials. The audience is already bought in. They paid for it already. So you don't have to song and dance them. You don't have to necessarily. And again, sometimes they will change the channel on like a Netflix TV show, say for like an NXT. But like a house show, they bought their ticket. They're there. They're not going anywhere. So you can, kind of impress them a little bit at the beginning. So typically your opening match has to have some kind of like, has to be something that builds the crowd up and gets them a little bit excited. Usually your weakest matches are going to probably be matches 2 or 3. I would say you have most shows have an intermission. So your pre-show main event, like which would be your pre-intermission main event would be the match that goes right before, which would be one of your marquee matches. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to put that at the semi-main event necessarily, just because it's another big marquee match. A good time to put it is right before you're going to let the fans kind of chill out for a minute and maybe put one of your top good guys out there so that they can go straight to an autograph table and, and capitalize on the fact that the fans are excited to see him and they just got to see him go out there and do some things. The match typically following your intermission type thing, they actually have a term for it. It's called popcorn, but it's like opening match again. And you have to really reignite the crowd and like actually get people away from the autograph stand, get people away from the concession stand. When they start hearing cheers and boos and loud music, they're, oh crap, we're going to miss it. And typically you put somebody, like I was, who I would say the greatest popcorn wrestler of all time on a house show was Jazz. Cause oh my God, like people would run from the concession stand, run from the autograph table, because she was coming out. And man, she'd go out there, have a clean, crisp, 5-8 minute match, nothing too long, but nothing like what we had to watch on NWA today. It'd go out there and the people were just immediately electrified. And typically that match would roll into your semi-main event, which didn't always have to be your second best match, but it needed to be something worth watching. At that point, you haven't totally worn the fans out for the main event, and then they can interact and react. What I see happen a lot on like pay-per-views is they will, like especially WrestleMania, it's just a long show and they're going to wear the fans out. Same thing happens on NWA. Happened at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, is we would have these long days, and it's like the fans would get tired, and they by the time you're at the final show of your season, it's like the fans are worn out, and it's not like it's like they're human beings. It's not like they don't love the wrestling and the wrestlers, but they're worn out. And sometimes it's almost better if you're recording a TV show to put some of those matches out of order in terms of how you're recording it so that you can get the right fan reaction. Maybe throw some of your throwaway matches there at the very end so that the fans, maybe not can respond accordingly. And then a pay-per-view, again, is like a glorified house show. They've already bought the tickets. They're already invested. They're already there. Unless you buy the WWE network, then it's kind of like, well, maybe if I watch it, maybe I won't. Well, if it's not any good, sometimes what I do with the WWE network or their pay-per-views is I'll start them an hour late so I can fast forward through some of the stuff if I don't like it. And
that makes sense.
It makes it actually a lot more enjoyable because you don't have to watch the stuff you don't like, and you can get to the things that do. Because you can't tell me that every WWE programming, every pay-per-view is garbage. It's just some parts are. And
I agree with that.
But pay-per-view, you have a captive audience. You typically have the culmination of a storyline depending on what pay-per-view it is, if it's a big one. And the flow of the show still has to follow similar to like a house show where, you want to have something exciting. I'll tell you the best form or my favorite format of a pay-per-view these days would be an NXT takeover, because their opening matches are typically one of the best matches of the show, but they typically don't upstage the main event. And I think that's kind of it's a really good format. And again, it's probably not what they used to do, back in the old NWA 80s days when the first match was 8 minutes and 2 nobodies. And they still even do that they still do that in New Japan. And heck, sometimes those opening matches are some of the best matches of the show, even though they're only like 8 minutes. So again, DK, that was probably a long-winded answer to your question. But if you're running a wrestling show, like a local wrestling show, you really need to make sure that you follow like a good house show format, because leaving a little bit for them to be desired is what will actually make them want to come back to the next show. These 3.5, 4 hour wannabe WWE pay-per-view house shows that you see in Mineral Wells, Texas, like, bro, that's why they're not drawing anything more than 100 fans. Because the fans are like, there's really no payoff, and there's nothing that makes them go, oh, I got to come back next time. It's like, well, dang, I saw Monday Night Raw repeated just at half pace. So again, I think, and again, if you want to see like how does a good like pay-per-view, low budget pay-per-view look, I would say look at like a 90s ECW pay-per-view, because man, they would squeeze every drop out of the talent they had. I mean, I always go back to the 911 comparison, where 911 would have not ever been a household name in the 90s for like big time wrestling fans had he not wrestled for ECW, because somebody would have tried to make him go out there and be Kane or Undertaker, and he just wasn't that. He was great. They would put a crappy match out there on purpose. And at first you're watching, you're going, oh, are these two of the new up-and-comers? ECW is famous for, like, bringing these wrestlers you never heard of. And they go out there and, like, wrestle, and you go, my God, that was incredible. And you're like, oh, and then next year that became Super Crazy and Tajiri, and you never heard of them. But then sometimes they'd roll these two guys out there, and about 3 minutes in, you go, uh-oh, what's about to happen. The 911's music would come on. He'd roll out and choke slam the crap out of two of them, and they get a huge pop, and it's like, that's great booking, because again, you're not having him go out there and have an 8-minute match. You got a couple jabronis in the back. Hey, like, let's make something out of this. I love that. I love how ECW would turn a singles match into a tag match, into an all out brawl, and then out come the gangsters, and then it's like, and by the time you're 20 minutes in, you're like, this is awesome, and nothing great has happened, but I'm entertained. So Devin, I think again, I probably covered the gamut, but I think it gives you an idea of kind of like different ways that you can look at a wrestling show And wrestling shows could be a lot more successful at the local level if they just be creative with what they have and not try to do so much.
And I think that was the point that I was really trying to get out there. You know, you talked about NXT and the takeovers. Do you know what makes an NXT takeover so successful? It's 5 matches.
Yeah.
You know, typically 3 title matches, maybe 4, and then 2 non-title matches, grudge matches. So it's 5, 6 on the outside. It runs about 2.5 hours.
Yep. Yeah,
which is about what a show should run, 2 to 2.5. And because by the time it gets to 3, I don't care anymore.
Yep.
And you know, we can wrap up with this. And I do want people to kind of understand what they should expect when they go to a show. And man, if there's some promoters listening.
Uh-oh.
We just lost you, DK.
Uh-oh. He's on a soliloquy right now and we can't hear it.
He was about to cut the world's greatest promo right there. Let me
get him
let me
back.
see if I can bring him back on.
He may just go to bed.
He's actually snoring right now.
He's like, they hung up on me.
I mean, I wanted to wrap up the show, but I wanted him to finish his point.
No, it's a good point, too. Well, you need to add something to this.
Well, I mean, look, I'm a student of the game. You guys are talking about stuff that, you know, I used to have delusions of grandeur about putting on a wrestling show myself. And sometimes I could still allow myself to think like, hey, how cool would it be to do a JCal Pro Wrestling or the Alliance Wrestling show? And just for whatever reason, mostly because I like money and I don't want to not have money. I've never done it. But, you know, that's something to certainly take into consideration. Like, how do you pace the show? Because you don't want to, much to what you were saying, you don't want to oversaturate a show, and you also don't want to give them the same thing they get on TV for free. You got to figure out a way to differentiate yourself, and I guess that's part of the reason why I connect so much with the NWA, because it's something different. I mean, locally, I've got championship wrestling from Hollywood. If the NWA never existed, I could watch Hollywood and get something comparable, something similar, but it's not the same, but it's similar.
Right. It's a good show. I mean, that's always been a good show.
And you know, and I don't know if you know this, but they're revamping creative. They're bringing in new names. And I don't think we're going to be able to get DKM back on. But the show is going to be a little bit different. But, you know, I don't know if people know this, and again, this is an NWA podcast, but Championship Wrestling from Hollywood has been so closely affiliated with the NWA for years. I want to mention that, you know, Adam Pearce was part of creative initially, and then when he left, Joey Ryan took over. People don't know that. Joey Ryan was running creative right about the time before you got there. And then when you got there, I think Pearce was kind of back in it with, you know, it wasn't just one guy. There's a committee, but Pearce came back and he was kind of heading it, and then other guys kind of came back and things changed. But, you know, the show's been going on for now over a decade.
That's wild.
Think about that. The little indie show that keeps doing it. So we're not going to get Mr. DKM on here to finish his point, and maybe I'll have him send it to me in an audio, and we'll try to splice it in here. But we're going to call it a night. So real quick, Champ, how could folks follow you on social media?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter at Kevin Lee Frazier, Frazier. And you can also find me on Facebook as well, Kevin L. Frazier. My YouTube channel is just Kevin247 for motivational speaking. If you want some professional wrestling that I used to do back in the day, you can go to Kevin Douglas 247. And there's plenty of material out there if you want to get to know my career back in the day. If it helps give me a little credibility for some of the things I say in the show, that's great. And if it gives you a little bit of inspiration, even better.
I'm still waiting for your Aaron, the Shooter Stevens, ASS to take you up on that offer. And again, you can follow DKM for his wrestling takes. You can follow him on Twitter at DKM FWTX. That's DKM Fort Worth, Texas. Of course, J Cal, you can follow me first to third for all your baseball and wrestling chat, or you could just hit me up at the Alliance blog where we do the majority of our content posting, and that's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Tumblr, Twitch TV, and of course, you're watching us on YouTube. Again, it's always a pleasure to have you guys check us out. It really does mean a lot to me. I know it means a lot to Kevin and DKM. And until next time, guys, we'll see you at the matches. You have a good night now. Thanks,
All
brother.
right, man. You got it. Well, do we want to try for a Wednesday next week?
Yeah, Wednesday is preferred. I just my girls are getting into gymnastics, but their classes will be on Tuesday, so it shouldn't interfere with us going forward.
Cool.
But the evaluation process was on a Wednesday, so that's why we weren't able to get it that time. But yeah, we should be back to the regular time.
Cool. All right, man. Well, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, you have a good one.
All right,
be well.
thanks, Jay. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.